The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness. I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal. Excited to be with you here, as always, but tonight, coming at you live from New York City, New York, where it is July the 10th, and that means that it's hot and it's humid, but it's okay, because we're used to that here. At this time of year, this is what you get. But it's great. I just literally, well, take your choice. I put up a picture on Instagram within the last 10 minutes. I used to be short order dead, but I gave that up. And so it's real Rob Rosenthal on Instagram. I put up a picture of what it looks like right now in Central Park, kind of overlooking the New York City skyline on July the 10th. And I said something to the effect of, this is basically, you know, pure midsummer, and it is just such a happy time. It's just such a happy, happy day. I hope it was as happy for everybody else as it was for me. I realize that I must have what they call seasonal affective disorder. I swear to you, I am way happier today than I would be if this was the middle of February. And that, I mean, I don't mean that to be a revelation. I literally think that I have the seasonal affective thing. I'm never as happy in kind of the cold and dark months, much as I love having four seasons. I'm never as, do you feel this way? I mean, it's like, you know, it gets dark early and it's cold and you don't spend as much time outside. So I don't know. I never really feel as good that time. But this, man, give me July. Give me a bike ride. Give me a run. Let me get outside. Let me go to the beach. Let me eat. Let me drink. That's the only problem that I encounter with the summer, everybody. Tell me if this is the case. You know, if you're one of these people who likes to eat and drink a lot, and that is my MO, I mean, it's what I do. Frankly, I do it professionally. And here we are talking about it. But if it's what you like to do, you know, the occupational hazard, as I call it, is I'm always walking around with the extra tonnage, and I work out like an animal. I mean, I work out a lot, so I don't have, you know, that's not an issue. I eat and drink. I mean, I eat and drink, and I like doing it. I would do anything to lose 15 pounds except giving up eating and drinking. But again, well, there you go. I mean, so anyway, that is a roundabout way of saying that, you know, you kind of, like, here's the irony. I try to go into the summer, you know, feeling a little bit kind of lighter and leaner. I haven't been successful now in a decade, but let's just say in theory, I love the idea of lightening up for the summer because, you know, you're going to go out, you're going to be, you know, out, you're going to be public a lot, you know, there are bathing suits involved and whatever. And then even if I was successful, and I was not, I'm in the middle of July 10th, I should be at, like, you know, peak form, and I'm at fat form, but fine. Even so, the point is that summer turns out to be like just party central. I mean, there's not a weekend that goes by that doesn't involve, you know, eating and drinking. And you could say, well, yeah, sure, but, like, isn't it cleaner eating, right? Because there's all those beautiful, you know, fruits and vegetables and even on, you know, even grilling doesn't involve kind of like the heavy and the cream and whatever. Yeah, and I think that that's probably all true. You could make your way through a summer eating and drinking beautifully lean and clean and healthy and lovely, and tomatoes, corn, grilled chicken, grilled seafood. This is all beautiful stuff. but at the volume I'm doing it, I mean, it's anyway. I love the summer. I don't know why I digress. Here's tonight's show, my friends. We have two things going on. We're going to talk about two of my very favorite subjects. Not one, two. One of those subjects is pizza. I've had a love affair with pizza since I'm a little boy. I remember my first slice. I have eaten in thousands, over 3,000 restaurants around the world. I have a professional French cooking degree. To this day, my favorite food in the world is still a slice of pizza. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from when it comes to pizza. That's number one for me. On my death row meal, there's going to be pizza. And so one of the subjects we talk about tonight on the show is pizza, and the other of my favorite subjects is travel. And because I'm just back from a trip, not just any trip, I was on a cruise, and I almost want to say, believe it or not, because like there is certain, I don't know, I always perceived that there were certain people that were kind of like cruise people, and I was not one of those people, and yet. I have just returned last weekend from my third ever cruise, and it was extraordinary and amazing. And it was in the Adriatic part of the world, which means that there was Greece and Croatia and Venice, Italy involved in the cruise, and a country called Montenegro. Those were the stops, so we're going to talk about that. Because I really want to stress, when it comes to the subject of travel, not only the joy, but the full learning and appreciation for other people and other cultures as you explore where they live and what they do and what they eat around the world. It's to me one of the great pleasures. So a super show tonight, podcast, by the way, episode number 59 of All You Can Eat, coming to you live. My two favorite subjects, pizza, and the other one is travel. And my guest tonight is a guy named Drew French. Now, Drew is on the line, and Drew is a guy who is coming to us from, I'm going to say Athens, Georgia, but we'll confirm that in a second with Drew. And he's the founder of a company called Your Pie, P-I-E, a build-your-own pizza franchise with 70 locations, all the way from Florida to California. And, Drew, we're going to talk about some of the things that they're doing at Your Pie, including, a summertime kind of special, which is your peach prosciutto pie. I want to talk to you about that, Drew. I'm forewarning you. I'm just telling you up front, Drew, before we even get on the line with you, man. I'm a purist. I just want to say that before we talk about your peach prosciutto pie. And the thing that's great about Drew is not only that he has this company that's built on sharing his love of pizza, but young Drew here had a spot on the U.S. pizza team in 2016, and a chance to compete in the World Pizza Championships in Parma, Italy. And by the way, speaking of travel, Italy will always be on everybody's list. I was in Venice last, Sunday, so we're going to talk about, a little bit of Italy. Parma, Italy is one of the great eating cities. Italy in general is fantastic. Parma is just fantastic. So we're going to talk to Drew. In fact, Drew, let's not waste any more time. Are you there with me, Drew?
I am, and thanks for having me on.
I am glad that you're on. And am I right, Drew, that that we are getting you in Athens, Georgia?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm a University of Georgia and REM and a bunch of other cool stuff. A lot of great food as well.
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff. That is right. That is the hometown of REM. Are you originally from that part of the world?
Been here most of my life, but no, originally moved all around. You talked about travel. My dad was in the Navy, so growing up, we did a lot of that, moving from place to place, but then call Athens home now.
Well, what about, let's just, before we even get into the whole pizza thing, let's go into that. Like, the first thing I always ask people is what do they remember eating growing up? And your experience is particularly interesting to me because you were moving around from an early age, right? So were you what do you remember eating at these different places? Where did you go and what did you eat?
Well, it's funny that you're also talking about travel because travel is really the reason Your Pie exists.
Right.
My wife and I were on our honeymoon in Ischia, Italy, which is an island off the coast of Naples. And that's where we were inspired to do Your Pie. So really Your Pie was born out of this experience traveling. To this day, we travel for inspiration, not just for Your Pie, but for other things. So you're spot on with just going to different places, immersing yourselves in those local cultures and getting that great food. So that's certainly been my story. And just growing up, going all around different parts of the country, you experience that. And from an early age, I was like what you were talking about. I wanted to lose the weight, but I didn't want to stop eating and drinking. So
right.
I got into this business because I love to eat, and I'm passionate about what we're doing through food.
All right, so I want to return to that because I want to understand what it is that you're doing. But what did you eat? Kind of growing up as you were moving around. Do you remember, like where were you and what were you eating?
Well,
I mean, did your mom cook or? Yeah.
I was born in Puerto Rico, so experienced that food culture. Not when I was born, but going back and just learning about that through Florida. A lot of the Gulf Coast fare, which I still love. We just traveled a lot growing up in New Orleans, California. Had family in California, so experienced everything over there, and did some Europe travel as well. But my family cooked, and one of the other reasons I got into the restaurant business is both my parents work, and I helped them out in the kitchen, and kind of self-learned from my mother and from other grandparents, and also self-taught, just helping out with family dinners. So just got into the kitchen and started messing around with different ingredients.
So you were always interested in food, and did you start out in the food business?
I did. My parents were not in that business. Really, no one in my family was in the restaurant industry, but I love to cook, so I gravitated to restaurants at an early age and working in restaurants, and just my whole childhood was immersing myself as much as possible in different kinds of restaurants. And so that's really where I fell in love with the idea. And that when I was in middle school, I told my family I was going to open a restaurant in the Virgin Islands. That was my dream. And from that day forward, I just was working on what kind of restaurant am I going to open? What am I going to get into? Because I loved cooking for people. I love how food brings people together. And it's just what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Have you opened your Virgin Islands outpost yet?
Not yet, man. At this point, I'd rather just go down there and hang out instead of owning a restaurant down there. But we've got, like you said earlier, we've got Your Pies across the country. So it's a great excuse for me to continue traveling, visiting those stores, and experiencing those local cultures as well.
Well, maybe I'll do the Virgin Island, the first Virgin Islands franchise with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell people now, because this is a great story, right? You and your wife go on your honeymoon, and you go to I'm going to say Ischia, right?
Correct.
All right. So you're going to tell people, Drew, where that is, and when you went, and what you discovered.
Sure. Yeah, I was lucky enough to marry my high school sweetheart, Natalie, and her family is from that island. Her grandparents came over from Ischia in the 50s. And so right when we started dating, I got immersed in the Italian culture. From from at an early age. And on our honeymoon, now they wanted to show me her family that was still over in Ischia, and we really got immersed in that culture. And the reason it's important for us, our story in pizza, is Naples, as a lot of people know, is really the mecca of pizza. It's where pizza, as we know it, was invented.
Sure.
And so we were in this pizza culture, also this Italian culture where everything was about family, everything was about delicious food, and what they tried to feed us more than we could even imagine. And their backyards, instead of having grills, they had brick ovens that we were cooking pizza in. So it was this really cool experience. So we were over there in 2006 when Italy won the World Cup.
Wow.
So we got to experience that firsthand. So just this amazing experience. And we looked at each other at that time and said, hey, let's do this your pie thing. We kind of had the idea before that trip, but that's really where the light bulb went off to use brick ovens and to really use her family's recipes and just go for it.
It's a great story, because when it's an amazing thing when that happens, when people have that kind of moment, that epiphany, that aha, and everything connects. And I got to say, honestly, it's impressive. I can't speak to having tasted the product. We'll talk about that a little bit because you don't have it up by me. But the fact that you got 70 of these things around the country, that's a big business. So you've done a great job at kind of converting your dream into a functional, operational, profitable, business. That's congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we did it with just the idea that at the time, I know up in New York, you have the slice thing, but where I was growing up, we had this argument over pizza all the time about what goes on pizza. And we'd end up arguing and end up with a half cheese, half pepperoni. So my idea coming out of that Italy experience was to do these great Italian style brick oven pizzas, but give people a choice of what goes on it. So we forced people into getting what they wanted on their pizza. So
it's great.
You come in and get exactly what you want. And that was really a light bulb for a lot of other people coming in that had always experienced that argument over pizza. We changed that. And so it's been fun. It's been a great experience.
Well, two things. Number one, it's a great concept, right? So let me just clarify for those who are listening that we're going to talk about your actual kind of products and ingredients in a second, but the concept behind your pie is that you basically come in and there's all these beautiful ingredients in front of you, and you get to choose whatever it is that you want your pie to be made of. That's the idea. Yes?
Yeah, correct. You talked about being a traditionalist, and we have that. We have the margarita, the first pizza, the simplest Italian pizza on the menu, but you can also go crazy with, we have vegan cheese, all kinds of toppings, because pizza to us is in the eye of the beholder, and we want everybody to get exactly what they want on their pizza. So we have anything from barbecue sauce to chipotle pesto to traditional marinara. We have 8 different types of cheeses, about 30 toppings, and we fire that in a brick oven in about 3 minutes. And then at the end of it, you're experiencing a truly authentic Italian pizza with our twist on it.
Sweet. Let me do 2 things, Drew. Let me tell people that they can check out all the pizzas and the menu and the locations if they want. That's at yourpie.com, YOUR pie, PIE, yourpie.com. So you can check all this out that Drew and I are talking about. And you can look at the menu and see the different options. It's lovely. I'm always happy, as you know from me, looking at it, talking about it, reading about it, and then ultimately eating it. I want to take you, so there's 2 things, Drew. I want to come back to your pie in a second, but I want to talk about what it must have been like in all those places that you kind of grew up, there's beautiful food. They all have, New Orleans is Puerto Rico, California. These are all places that have beautiful kind of not only food but their own type of cuisine. But none of them necessarily notorious for pizza. So when you go to Ischia and you start eating pizza over there, what are you saying to yourself when you taste the stuff for the first, like this kind, like real pizza? Tell me about that experience.
Well, it blew my mind. To your point, I hadn't ever really had great pizza before I went to Italy, and I was looking at how simple it was in terms of less was more. It wasn't about a bunch of ingredients. It wasn't about loading up a bunch of toppings, a bunch of cheese, and that's kind of what we experienced over here. Was more. Mm-hmm. And in Italy, it's these great, fresh, local, simple ingredients, and how it's cooked in the open fire, and then what you experience is just mind blowing. So I was like, man, we need to bring this to our region of the world. And at the time, that was Athens, Georgia. So
yeah,
that's how it was born. It was just this, man, we can make this pizza incredible, doing it the traditional way.
Yeah, it's a very astute observation that you had, by the way, because the beauty of Italian cuisine is exactly what you experience, which is you don't need a lot of stuff. You just need a few really good things. I mean, because pizza is 3 ingredients at the end of the day, right? It's bread, it's tomatoes or tomato sauce, and it's some cheese. So that is in fact the beauty of Italian food, simplicity, but predicated on super quality ingredients. So I not to put you on the spot, man, but like, what are the ingredients when I walk into your pie? What are we looking at there? What are we making pizza from? What do you got?
Well, you mentioned the basics. Everything starts with the dough. We've got a family recipe dough that is delicious. It bakes perfectly in the brick oven. So it starts with that. Making a great dough is not always a science. It does require a lot of science when you look at humidity levels, et cetera. But then from there, we do have our traditional marinara that, again, a family recipe. But we have our own southern twist with our barbecue sauce and a hot sauce. I'm a big hot sauce guy that we make in house. All the way to our ranch. It's funny. We have this ranch that people go crazy over. And you wouldn't think to put ranch on pizza, but try it if you haven't, as long as it's a great ranch. But yeah, and then our ingredients, very fresh, very simple. We try not to overcomplicate things. We hand cut all of our fresh veggies, and all your traditional toppings. And then we have our craft series, which I think we'll talk about with the peach prosciutto pie, where we try and bring in seasonal or just unique ingredients that merge really well together and keep the menu interesting for our guests.
Sweet. And how hot do those ovens get, man?
I mean, they get as hot as you want them. We're cooking close to 1,000 degrees in the dome.
Wow.
So we try and cook. We're thin crust Italian style, so we're trying to cook them in between 2 and 5 minutes, depending on how many toppings people put on. But again, we try and educate about the less is more, and make sure that people are getting those quality ingredients and not overdoing it. But at the end of the day, we'll do whatever somebody asks.
Yes, I got you, and I understand. So I just want for anybody that doesn't know, right? And there's a lot of people that don't know, because most people didn't grow up having like world class, pizza. Like the default pizza in the United States of America is basically coming from some chain. And I'm not saying I don't mean to disparage it, but it's there's a difference between that kind of industrial strength product, even if it tastes good. And when you're making stuff using high quality ingredients and you're putting it in an 800 to 1,000 degree oven, so it's really only cooking, for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, it's a big difference for people. So if someone were coming into your place, right, and you only had to, and I don't want to, again, we're going to talk about pizza and prosciutto all you want, but like to your point, in the keeping it simple, if someone was going to come in who didn't, and you wanted to go, here's what a pizza should taste like, I'm going to assume you would go with like a basic kind of margarita, no?
Sure, and our menu is built that way because we have 6 or 7 menu items that help guide people's decisions. So it does overwhelm you at times when you have all these incredible ingredients right in front of you to look at, and you're used to, your point, getting a cheese or pepperoni pizza from a big box or big chain. So we do have to educate some through our menu and through our team, helping guide people to explore different flavor profiles on their pizza. But at the end of the day, that's what our guests appreciate, is that we're giving them something different to try. They get creative with their toppings, with their merging of sauces, but we do have those base pizzas on our menu to help guide those decisions, so they can see, well, these are kind of chef-driven recipes that we know taste great and people love, and that helps guide those decisions.
All right, and finally, tell everybody about the peach and prosciutto combo.
Sure. Yeah, we've been actually doing this for the last 4 years, I believe, when peaches are in season. But we do this thing called the Craft Series, and it's our version of a limited time offer. But we like to get creative in the kitchen and when different ingredients are in season. And we came up with a peach prosciutto pie, I believe it was 4 years ago, and it was really an homage to our Italian roots and to our southern roots. So we were merging these incredible classic Italian ingredients with the prosciutto, Parmesan. We do a reduced balsamic honey reduction to top it all off, and then we throw our roasted Georgia peaches on top. And so we created this kind of salty, sweet deliciousness that really came from having dinner at my wife's family's Italian dinners, where they wrap the prosciutto and the melon. That's kind of our
version, yeah,
our version of it. And we came up with it, and people started going nuts for it. We entered a competition, a cooking competition, because we like to compete. And we won Best Pizza in the East with it, and that put me on the U.S. Pizza team. And then Matt and I went over to Parma as part of the U.S. Pizza team and competed against the world in the World Pizza Championships with that pizza and others. So it's been a surprisingly huge success. It's our pizza every year that everybody keeps asking, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? But the cool thing and the hard thing about peaches is they're a fickle fruit, and they only can grow for a certain amount of time per year. And so we have the pizza when that peaches are in season.
And nobody's got better peaches in this country than Georgia, I'll give you that. So that combination is impressive, right? Because you're putting together a little Georgia and a little Parma, and life is good. I would enjoy that. And the pizza competition thing, how was that? Was that cool?
It was fun. It was a great experience. We like to think that, and we do believe our pizza is best in the world, but when you get over there to Parma, Italy, and you're competing against 600 people that are as passionate as you are at pizza and have been, passing down recipes for generations. And, it was definitely a great experience. I learned a lot while going over there. It's part of the U.S. Pizza team. The other people on the U.S. Pizza team are great at what they do, and again, super passionate about pizza and make great pizza. And so we definitely will never forget that experience. And still to this day compete. Every few years, we like to get our competing hats back on and go out there and show what we're made of.
Hey, on a slightly different note, what's the best beverage for a pizza? Like, what do I want to be drinking when I'm eating pizza?
Man, I was looking at some pictures from my last Italy trip, and there was a lot of Peroni in those pictures.
Okay, so you're saying beer is? But, you're saying beer. You're saying cold beer.
Yeah. I mean, I could go with
yeah,
a glass of wine, a beer, but different beers, different styles of beers pair really well with different styles of pizza. So if you got something real spicy on your pizza, a good light lager, is going to kind of tame that down for you a little bit. But an IPA goes well with a different style. So it kind of depends on what you're eating. But pizza and beer is kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. It's funny. It was literally, what is today? Wednesday? All right, so it wasn't this past Saturday. It was a week ago. Then I was sitting eating a pizza on the water in Venice, and I ordered some. They had like a house wine. They had a house wine by the carafe, and that felt good. But I got to be honest with you. I think, and I don't know if it's because I'm super thirsty right now. Because I'm going to tell you something, Drew. I knew I was talking to you, and I ended up having a half a pie for dinner so far tonight. And I say so far because I may not be done. But I think you're right. I think a cold, beer for the most part. I mean, I'm generalizing. There's nothing wrong with a good, wine too, or sometimes even a Coca-Cola. But yeah, I think a nice pull draft of beer with a pizza, that's happy food. All right, Drew, two things. I'm going to just remind people that they can check out yourpie.com so they can find where your 70 locations are physically located if they want to go have some great brick oven pizza. And I see that you have some gelato in there too, which is lovely. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I know that you're coming my way. You can be in New York City, and I'm not going to say that we have the best pizza in the country, but we certainly are competitive in the world of pizza. So when we're offline, hit me up, and I'll tell you what from my many years of pizza eating experience, what I think might be worth checking out when you're here in town on like a pizza thing or any kind of food. Frankly, I mean that's what I do.
Awesome. No, I can't wait. I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to you trying our pizza someday.
Drew, I look forward to it as well. And even though I told you that I'm a purist, I got to confess now, I would not have a problem giving a try to a little Georgia peach and prosciutto pizza. All right, everybody, there you go. That is Drew French from Your Pie. Drew, thanks. We'll be in touch.
All right, thanks, Rob.
Thank you too. So, as I promised, we open up on the subject of pizza pie. Love that. Love what they're doing, by the way. And then I tell you what I'm struck by is that it can happen. This idea that you have a revelation, that you have the aha moment. There's a guy, 10 years ago or so, whenever it was, 2006, 2008, I forget the exact year, he's getting married. They go over to his wife's homeland over there in Ischia, Italy area. He's eating pizza and he's going, whoa, this is unbelievable. And he turns that dream of I'm going to have my own operation into what is now a 70-unit pizza making, restaurant business. Good for you. Good for you. Now, part of the reason that was able to happen is because Drew and the bride chose a wedding or a honeymoon over in Italy. Now, for people that travel, what I'm going to say might seem trite or cliche or obvious, and God knows I'm famous for sage observations on the obvious. But travel is one of the greatest things that you can do in the world, not because you necessarily want to, sit on a beach somewhere, not that there's anything wrong with that. But the experience of being in another place, in another time, in another culture, with another people, man, there's nothing else like that. To take you out of your zone, of your comfort, of all that it is that you know, to put you in a place where you're a foreigner, you are literally a foreigner, and you are forced in the best possible way to look around and to see how other people live their lives. And some of it you will find amazing. And some of it you can find pedestrian, like, yeah, okay, I don't really care that much. They're doing the same thing I do, right? And some of it you can find, I don't know, depressing or upsetting. Oh, look at the poverty. Look at that shanty town. But I'll tell you what, for the most part, what you find is fascinating and fabulous and delicious and amazing. Anthony Bourdain, we still miss you, but this is what Anthony said about travel. It seems that the more places I see and experience, the bigger I realize the world to be. The more I become aware of, the more I realize how relatively little I know of it, how many places I still have to go, how much more there is to learn. You got to get out there and see things, any chance that you have. I encourage that. I love that. And you're talking to a guy who has gone to a lot of places. A lot of places. Bourdain says travel changes you. As you move through this life and this world, you change things slightly. You leave marks behind, however small. And in return, life and travel leaves marks on you. The journey is part of the experience, an expression of the seriousness of one's intent. One doesn't take the A train to Mecca. He says, if you're 22, physically fit, hungry to learn and to be better, I urge you to travel as far and as widely as possible. Sleep on floors if you have to. Find out how other people live and eat and cook. Learn from them wherever you go. And one more, finally, from Anthony Bourdain, who has been gone for just over a year. He said, quote, if I'm an advocate for anything, it's to move as far as you can, as much as you can, across the ocean or simply across the river. The extent to which you can walk in someone else's shoes or at least eat their food, it's a plus for everybody. Open your mind, get up off the couch, and move. We miss you, Mr. Bourdain. In that spirit, I'm back just last weekend from a trip that I took, and as I mentioned before, it was a cruise, and I think people might have preconceptions about the idea of cruising. I didn't grow up thinking didn't come from a family that went on a cruise, I can tell you that. I didn't know much about it, but I wasn't attracted to the idea, but I can't tell you why. I don't remember anything other than, I don't think I want to be stuck on a boat for a week. I was mistaken, because now I'm coming back from about my third cruise, and it was glorious. This particular one focused on the Adriatic Sea, so the itinerary goes like you start in Athens, Greece. And that was exciting for me because in spite of the fact that I've probably been I don't know, to 40 countries on 6 continents. I had never been to Greece, so I'm like, oh, Greece is good. Then you make a stop in Santorini, Greece, also island, stunning, volcanic, beautiful. And then from Santorini, and this is the way these cruises work, by the way. This is the beauty of the cruise. Not only are you 24/7 on the water, I mean, let's face it, there's nowhere else for the boat to go. Not only are you 24/7 on water, beautiful sea, but then each day, more or less, you're stopping at a port city on the water. So you start in this cruise in Athens, Greece. You move to Santorini. You spend the day just floating around the sea. And depending on the cruise, it can be anything. It can be fantastic because you can eat, you can drink, go to the gym, you could dance, who knows? Depends on the boat that you're on. They all do something crazy different. Then you end up the next day at a place called Kotor, Montenegro. I had never been to Montenegro. It wasn't even on my list. But boy, that was something I'm going to tell you about Montenegro. Then from there you move to Croatia. 2 stops. The first one is in Dubrovnik. The next one in a city called Zadar, Zadar. And I'll tell you something. My excitement about Croatia, another place that I had not been, was because I'm pretty sure, like almost with 99% certainty, I could look it up, but I don't want to waste a second here with you, that Bourdain did an episode in Croatia. I'm pretty certain it was Croatia, and boy, these guys were eating and drinking. So much so, honestly, that at the end of the episode, you watch Bourdain literally get up from the table and fall on the floor. No joke. I'm pretty certain it was Croatia, and I'm pretty certain that from that moment that I had seen that, I'm like, you know what, I got to go to Croatia, not to fall on the floor, but the food and the wine look so amazing. So you do a little Dubrovnik, then you spend a day in Zadar, and then your final stop, and frankly, the highlight is in Venice, Italy, where I had been before, and I walked into Venice with Venice. Well, I was wrong about that as well, because Venice was the highlight. Venice is not like any other place in the world. So let me take you with me, my friends, on this cruise, not for me, and I'm only going to be able to give you now like a 13-minute recap of it. So I'm just going to really focus on the highlights here. If you want to get more information, I'm easy to contact because you can generally find me at Short Order Dad. You can Short Order Dad Gmail me. You can Short Order Dad Twitter me. You can Short Order Dad Facebook me. I changed the Instagram, as I had mentioned, to Real Rob Rosenthal. You can find me. Anyway, I'm easy to you look me up. If you go to Short Order Dead website, I'm sure there's a contact page. So I'm laying this out because I'm not only promoting the idea of traveling and moving around the world, but frankly, cruising. Love that. That cruise was extraordinary. You start off in Athens. So here's the highlight in Athens, right? It's old. I mean, the highlight in Athens is, and I'm no history buff, but the highlight in Athens is you're standing in history. The birthplace of democracy. The Greeks invented the idea that everybody should have a voice. And then there you are at the these constructions, these buildings. You marvel at not only that they're still standing 2,000 years later, but how they got them up in the first place. And even if you're not a history person or a culture person, you can't even believe what these people built. and how well they built it. The Acropolis. Unbelievable. Still standing thousands of years later. They invented basically, what do you call those things that lift pillars? Cranes. Just unbelievable to see, the ruins, the Acropolis. Then I end up at, and then just to marvel at how they built these things. Unbelievable. But then I found myself in Greece at an amphitheater. I'm pretty sure that half the words in the English language, by the way, started, are of Greek origin. And I'm standing in an amphitheater at 8 p.m. at night that holds 5,000 people. Built by a guy named Herodes Atticus. Built it for his wife, and the amphitheater was built in such a way that it's outside, a theater outside. You're sitting on brick outside, beautiful. And a piano player down on the stage can hit one key on his piano, and you can hear it perfectly clear in the very top seat number 5,000 of this amphitheater, without one iota of electrical current or amplification. Stunning. And the other super highlight in Greece is, the food. The food of the Mediterranean, but the Greek salad, the Greek olive oil, the feta cheese, etc., etc. I go to a place for dinner, a restaurant, and I went because I knew there was a combination of kind of like, classic Greek cuisine coupled with live music. So there's live music going in the background, and I order lamb. And the Greeks can do some lamb. Now, I am a guy that grew up eating lamb chops because my grandfather was a butcher. I grew up on lamb. I've had the best possible lamb. I made it. I've had it in the south of France. I've had it everywhere in the world. I had some lamb in Athens that had been cooked for a very, very long time. The kind of lamb that comes not as a chop, but it's coming off a bone like a shoulder or a thigh, and it cooks for so long that it falls off the bone, and the texture is almost like cotton. It is so soft and so beautiful and so delicious. I think it was one of the best pieces of lamb that I ever had. Next stop, Santorini. Unbelievable. It's an island that was built from a volcanic eruption, so even when you show up in the port, you're nowhere until you take a cable car up, because their homes are built into the side of a mountain. And they're beautiful, predominantly white homes set against a blue sea. And you just look up images of Santorini on Google, and they're classic. And that's what you see when you're there. And we walked until we found a wine tasting. And why does that matter? Because Santorini is a volcanic island, and the soil that grows up around volcanoes, it turns out to be very good for growing grapes. And it turns out that if you can grow grapes, and you go back thousands of years, they figured out how to make some wine. And in this case, some of that wine in Santorini is delicious. And then ended up at a place called Dimitri's on the water. Where you're eating. That feeling like when you're eating, but like you are one step from being in the water. And they're serving grilled octopus and grilled fish that are so fresh. They were probably, she said, the lady that served us at Dimitri's, the wife of the owner and chef said, if you want to come into the kitchen, feel free. You can pick the fish that you want us to make. When you have a fish that fresh, grilled simply, with nothing more than maybe a shot of olive oil and Greek olive oil and a squeeze of lemon, maybe a touch of oregano, you're living with some white Santorini wine. Breathtaking. Beautiful. Then we go to this place called, and when I say place, I'm talking about a country. Montenegro. Not a big country, but I'll tell you what. They got some amazing coastline over there. So much so that when the ship pulls into port and you walk outside on that ship and you look around, you are surrounded by these gorgeous mountains. I mean, I felt like I was in The Sound of Music. It's just that I was on a boat in the water. I'll tell you what I remember about Montenegro, by the way. We found ourselves a little bike tour. You ever do this? I swear it's my favorite thing to do wherever I go. If I can get on a bike, I will. And see as much as I can. I'll see more than I can walking. Well, anyway, we get on a bike tour, which involves hopping into a van with three people. And they end up driving, 45 minutes up the mountain. I know it's only like maybe 5 miles up there, or maybe it's 10 miles because it's kind of circuitous, whatever. I mean, driving, but you're driving on cliffs. It's not happy driving. Honestly, these roads built a long time ago can accommodate traffic only in one direction. It's a little bit intimidating, but eventually you get out of that van and you get yourself on a mountain bike heading downhill. And for the next hour, 15 kilometers, let's say 10 miles or so, for the next hour, you don't have to pedal anymore. Ever. You get on the bike and you head downhill, and you bike down a mountain through 25 turns, each one numbered. And everywhere along the way, you're overlooking from the mountainside this beautiful Bay of Kotor that you landed in. I mean, I cannot praise, promote, or recommend that experience enough. That is an adrenaline rush of heaven. Montenegro. Croatia, I think you probably end up needing more than 12 hours in a couple of ports. Dubrovnik is impressive in that it's old. It is spotless. You walk into the major kind of tourist old town of Dubrovnik, and you can't help but think, for better or for worse, Disney. I mean, it's like almost like, and that's the thing, by the way. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad. I will say if there's any kind of objection that anybody has to Dubrovnik, Croatia, it's because they only really spend time kind of in the old city, and it feels almost too perfect, almost as if it was a Disney takeover. Everything is spotless and really organized around extracting the maximum amount of tourist money. That said, for, $20-$30 or whatever it is, you can walk around the wall that surrounds that city, and it's worth doing. Zadar, Croatia, a small version of Dubrovnik. Again, old town, not a ton to see or do. Maybe you grab an hour or two on a sailboat around the area. The fish market was as impressive as any I've seen. Obviously they have beautiful, seafood there. And then we finally landed in Venice, and again, having been there, I remember the first time I was thinking, I think I was, I don't know. It's a lot. There's a phrase that has been going around called over-tourism, and it explains exactly what it is. Venice is a place that millions and millions of people are going to go, but it's not like any other place in the world. It's still worth going to. It's built on canals. I mean, there's no cars in Venice because there can't be. There's only boats. There's only gondolas. There's only little water taxis. It's unbelievable. And you go, how can people live like this? Like, where are the garbage trucks? They come in by boat. They figure out how to get around and remove garbage every day. Where are the fruits and vegetables? They come in by boat. And they unload. And then they walk down a street on a canal. The other highlight is Cicchetti. Small Italian bites, kind of their version of tapas that you can find at bars on almost every corner where you're drinking wine or beer with these delicious little sandwiches, whether they're meatballs or sardines or anchovies or cheese or whatever it is. And taking a gondola ride to get around, I mean, that's cool. Maybe even romantic, I don't know. And the food, anywhere you go in Italy, the food is good. Ain't gonna hurt you. Ain't gonna hurt you in Venice, Italy. Seafood, pizza, the wine. God bless. It was a beautiful place and a lovely trip. The line we took is called Seabourn. Seabourne. You can take a cruise on any line that you like. You can find different parts of the world. I know a lot of people like to go to Alaska. But wherever you go, my friends, go. Go, enjoy, take it in, see what people are doing, see what they're buying, see how they live, see what they're eating. Chat with them. Be nice to them. They'll be nice back. They love having guests. Moving around the world. Moving around the world. That's the way you got to do it. And so, my friends, always a treat to be with you, particularly when we get a chance to go live, and talk about two of the greatest subjects that there are in the world, travel, getting around, seeing things, eating your way around the world, and then pizza. So, hats off to my boy Drew and the folks at Your Pie. Thank you for tuning in for that. Seabourn, Adriatic, cruising, getting around, Anthony Bourdain. My friends, tune in next week. It'll be episode number 60. Wow, exciting. And I have guests coming up the wazoo, barbecue people and travel people and food people and chocolate people. It's going to be fantastic. Anyway, this is Rob Rosenthal. You are listening to All You Can Eat. And remember, until I see you next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m., life is short. So never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on.